We're not on YouTube.
Hang on. Oh, I see what happened. I'll fix that right now. That is my fault. Okay. Yeah, we're up and running. That was my glitch on my end. I apologize. That was OBS being very sensitive again.
That's the main reason I don't use OBS because it's not as clean, man.
You know what? You're right about it. It's not as clean, but your imagination is your limit. You can do so
Correct.
much with it. And
Yeah.
plus, I like the fact it's free. I'm not gonna lie to you about that.
True.
Like, StreamYard can get a little pricey. So, okay. Overall, education. We kind of touched bases on a little bit already, but what is the modern version of an education? What is education to you, to each and one of us, or seen education? Like Hashim, just his youngest just come out of high school into college. Let's start with him first. What is your version of a modern education, Hashim?
Modern education, meaning like when we was going to school,
Mm-hmm.
it's like I felt that the teachers was more involved. They taught, they how I felt they gave you more information. I know I had a lot of teachers that was, it's like you had to come to school and be more of how can I say it? It was a proper thing. You had to come there. They wanted you to be on time. They told you how to. They wanted to tell you how to dress, and so when you go out in the world, they how they look at you and present yourself. They how to speak, and it was just more than math and science and things like that. It was a little bit more. As I saw, I was getting out, and my son and my daughter was coming along. I didn't see a lot of that. It was just come to class. They wanted to tell you how to look like it's like they didn't show you anything. And a lot of these kids now, I don't even think the penmanship is right. I know back when they wanted it was about penmanship, how you write. Is now it's just I don't know, the script is even bad.
I don't think you
So
even do script anymore.
they don't see, that's where I'm at. But I know when she was in there, and my son, it was the penmanship is terrible. They don't. It's like they don't care. They just teach, and then that's it.
See, here's my pushback on this now. The reason the penmanship is so bad, nobody really writes anymore. You're hitting a keyboard or typing on a phone. So why would you learn? That's the first thing a kid is going to tell you. Why should I learn to write clearly and neatly or script when I can grab my phone, my iPhone, my Samsung, whatever, or grab my keyboard, for example, and type away? Why do I need to do that? Go ahead, Sheen.
But when
You're
that
the
goes
oldest person on this
down,
panel.
look when that goes down, they don't know how to write. When that goes down, they don't know how to communicate. I guess that's the problem. Another issue there. Back when that's all we had was communication. You had to talk, you had to speak. Now, because of I guess this here, there's no speaking. I don't even think these kids communicate. Dating, you can forget that. And nobody know how to speak to each other. Everything is texting. You got to text to how you doing? Let's date. Do you want to go out? Before you had to verbalize that.
I'll write a little note and you had to pass it to each other, kind of thing.
Yeah, you like me, right? What's that? Write a X or check or things like that. And I know I spent plenty of times in the mirror talking to myself or acting like I'm talking to a female or something like that to see how it'll come out. I've done that plenty of times before you walked up to her. Now,
All right,
you
Sheen,
don't have
I
to
need
do
you to
that.
hang
You
out a
just
second
text.
here. Like, I got to take your title away tonight. I have somebody else even older than you, believe it or not. We know him as Chef, and you know who I'm talking about already. We got to get him in here. Chef Payne's in the house, people.
All right now.
Payne, what's up, sir? You're on mute, sir.
Okay. Let me see if he's on my side. Hang on a second. Nope, it's on his side. All right, you try to speak. All right, nothing. Payne, trying to exit and come back in, it might fix the problem. All right. As he works on his chef problems, Ashim, finish what you were saying now.
I forgot where I was at thinking about that.
Typing and writing and stuff like that.
Yeah, typing and writing. Oh yeah, I was talking about, that's how it was. So you had to communicate. You had to speak and say what you want. Now, even my son, I had to get him out of that because everything was text. He dating and texting, talking to the girl. She calls, they got nothing to say. You hang up, they back
Mm.
texting. So that's where we're at. Oh, he fixed it.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Oh,
figure it right now.
yeah, it looks like it. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can
let
hear
me
you
Yeah.
get you
okay.
in. She really, I'm paying. Let me get you in here right now. And there we go. All right,
All right.
Payne, welcome, welcome.
Yeah, welcome everybody. Yeah. So thanks for the invite. I just said let me click on this, see what y'all got going on over here, man.
I like spicing things up a little once in a while. So tonight we're talking about education. I
Yeah,
know,
I caught some of that. I
yeah,
caught some of that.
yeah. Between you and the wise men of course Hashim. Um, you guys are a little respect, of course. You guys are the oldest here we have on the panel. So between back then and now, education has changed so much. And I know you have kids, right, Payne?
Yeah, yeah. One of my kids is a millennial. The other one's Gen Z.
Okay.
So they're living through this stuff now. So
So in other words, what is your opinion with the education going on today? The modern education is the question is right now.
well, I don't know much about how they. Well, I understand the liberalism that has taken over the schools, but I'm not in there. So I think that it's up to the individual to get the kind of information they needed. But it wasn't too much different when I went to school.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, I was like a trendsetter. I was in the chemical engineering department. I was pretty much the only black person in the whole department of engineering, not just chemical. So, but the school we had a black student union. Um, when I pledged the frat, we put black people back on the campus as black Greeks, so to speak, and that was revolutionary for everybody because I was up in Buffalo. There was
Hmm.
tumbleweeds going down the street, and they weren't used to black people. And back then, we pledged. I mean, it was a horror show. you know, so. But as far as the school was concerned, I think the same kind of whether it was as liberal as it is now, they were still somewhat controlling on what could be said on campus and what could be displayed. And we brought Farrakhan on campus. Man, that was crazy back then. Back in his heyday, he was on campus. So that
Mhm.
caused an uproar, and so I'm not so sure it's that much different now, except that liberalism has taken over completely on the campuses, and censorship is out of control, especially on the liberal side, I think. But if the conservatives were in charge, I'm not so sure they wouldn't be doing anything differently.
Hmm. Good point. Didn't know you guys had like a little thing going back in the day with the brothers had to swear in and stuff like that. Wife, what's your opinion?
Modern, I mean, you have to, I mean, education has sped up. It has kind of, sorry, kind have mutated to move a little bit faster. Like they're including apps and technology into education because so many people are digitized, so they try to find ways to incorporate that into the school, which I don't have a problem with because that's a good thing. People need to learn how to code, to really move about the digital space instead of growing up and just doing OnlyFans. Okay, so we need people to move forward. Um, but also at the same time, because of technology, can be a blessing and a curse. Um, children, they're prioritizing, their phones over their education. The school recognized, I'm not sure where the school is. They wanted to pose like take the kids' cell phones, lock them away for the majority of the day, and at the end of the day, they can pick up their phones. So that the students staged a walkout. So they were like, "Well, forget our education. We want to keep our phones, but like if the school, if that district is failing, and they're trying to improve, like the students aren't working enough or value their education to make those improvements, and that's kind of sad. Also, I think with modern education, there is way more emphasis to make the teachers raise the kids now.
Oh yeah.
Um, to But the parents just be lazy and they don't do anything. Um, and the children have lots of mental issues, a lot of mental issues these children are facing, and the parents aren't necessarily active in their, school, in their child's schooling, and it's just the parents. So it's like it's a war zone for the kids. The teachers aren't there to raise your children. They're there to teach the curriculum so that they can grasp the material and progress to the next grade. That's it. Not raise your kids and try to get them from running out to school. And I have friends that are teachers and they work in it, and it's not pretty. And I'm even there. I'm always beating on the teachers like, hey, y'all are like not paying attention here. Like you have a whole mission statement here. So I put them right back to that. and I hold them accountable on what they need to be accountable. And they work with me and improve the situation. Um, yeah, it's pretty bad. It's bad, like even though we think we are progressing in some aspects we are, but some areas we are not progressing, and it's really sad because the children in the end suffer the most. And who's protecting the children? No one.
You have a great point. Who is protecting these kids? Some parents don't even want to protect their own kids. That is the sad part.
Yeah.
So, Loss, you have the floor, my sir.
The educational system that we have now is a shadow of what it used to be. I remember coming up, the educational system was designed for you to reveal each child's genius. You know what I mean? Everybody's not good at everything. You see what I'm saying? And I can give you several examples of how the educational system back then actually produced better individuals. And some people would argue that. I'll give you an example. When we were in middle school, we had wood shop. You know what I'm saying? We actually learned how to use tools. We did electrical work. We did automotive when we had high school. We had specific high schools designed for vocations. Like, say, for instance, if you had a propensity for mathematical and mechanical genius, you would actually go to a specific high school. You know what I mean? If you had a specific academic acumen, you know what I mean, and a certain genius towards academics, you would go to a certain school. Like I went to a magnet school, but our magnet school was a different type of school. Our magnet school actually had a football team. So if you had people like me who are good in academics and athletics, that is a place that you would need to go. But inside those schools, there were even higher measures to separate everybody else. When I was coming up as a ninth grader, I was always in honors classes. So I was always around the same people all the time. We just passed classes. It's the same 30 people. You know what I mean? We all went to algebra class. We all went to the same English class. We all went to the same AP classes. You know what I'm saying? We developed those relationships so we learn how to work together. I really never worked with the general high school population because they pretty much separated us because we had a higher aptitude for athletic scholarship. So our crew, we would always find different talents and different things. Now, granted, our academics was the thing that we leaned on, but there were other things that we're good at as well too. Like me, it was science. We were in SECME, Southeastern Consortium for Minorities in Engineering. That was one of the things that I was involved in. I was also in the band, the football team. You know what I mean? All type of stuff. The choir. So there were some things that we were exposed to that was revealed that we can lean on. I'll give an example. When I played football, I kept cracking my dadgum helmet, you know what I'm saying, playing football. And then once my mom was like, no, you had too many concussions, man. That's it for you, and no more football. Well, the last day I played football, I cracked my skull in football practice on Monday.
Wow.
And on Friday, I was still on the football field, but I had a tube on my back. You see what I'm saying? Because I had already had a musical background since I was in, 4th or 5th grade. You know what I'm saying? I learned how to play different instruments. So even though, if one thing doesn't work out, you still have something to lean on. And of course, we had other talents as well. But the way that we have the school system set up now is that we don't reveal our geniuses we don't allow our children to develop their natural talents because we don't sit down and we don't talk to them. You know what I mean? I remember one day I was probably maybe about 5 or 6 years old, and I was at church or whatever, and this is like after church. So I was actually playing on the piano, and I was actually playing a tune, and my mom was like, "Wait a minute, that boy can play." But I didn't even know how to read music. I just played by ear. You know what I'm saying? When you come up with in the church, you know what sounds good and what don't sound good. So I'll pick stuff out. So after that, my mom put me in piano lessons. You know what I mean? But she paid attention. Her and my dad paid attention to what I was doing. And that was a genius that needed to be worked on. And after that, I went to piano classes. You know what I mean? And after that, it was a wrap. You know what I mean? I learned how to play classical music because I had a talent for that thing. And I just learned how to, read music, play music. And as I got older and I got in high school, we started to write music. You know what I mean? And we had different arrangements. So our band sounded different. Our band sounded fantastic. You know how you normally hear regular bands and they sound like trash? No. Our band sounded like an orchestra. You see what I'm saying? So it was different. You know what I mean? All because of the genius that was developed in us. You see what I'm saying? And also when we had other schools that participated with us, they had extensions where we would actually have after school assignments. And I remember going to summer school, not really summer school. It was actually enrichment where you would actually go to different colleges or whatever. Like we went to UAB, University of Alabama, Birmingham, and we had different programs, Coca-Cola scholars. And you would actually go out and you would be mentored by someone who's going to be in your prospective field. Mine was civil engineering. So they put me with the city civil engineers, and we would actually get out in them old dusty trucks and go out, and we would get these poles and we'll rock them. And they'll show you how to view the land and survey the land and that type of thing, and go out there and mark the little different places so they can measure things. I was like, oh, this is interesting. You know what I'm saying? So if you don't get exposed to stuff like that, you don't understand the direction of your life and where it could possibly go. And I don't think today we do that enough, where we actually look at our children and find out what they have a natural talent for and how to actually hone that skill to something they could develop. And as they get older, then they get into something that is not like work, it's something that they enjoy doing. And if you get kids into something that they enjoy doing, it no longer becomes work, and they become extremely successful, wildly successful, because they're not punching a clock. They're punching a career. You see what I'm saying? This is something they have a natural curiosity for. And if you do that, you'll learn to solve problems way more easier if it's something that you're willing to do versus something that you're forced to do. So I think you'll see a lot of Gen Z and a lot of people who can't find jobs is because they just got pushed through school and nobody really developed them and their natural talents. And they say, here's your degree, and go out into the world. But if everybody has the same generic degree, then what are you special at? You know, when people come hire people, well, what can you do for the company? Well, I have a business degree and this, that, and other. Okay, what else do you have to do? These kids don't have experience. They were never exposed. You know what I'm saying? They didn't go to field trips that were specific to their particular talents. You see what I'm saying? Like they have these 7-on-7s with the football players or whatever. Those are examples of people and parents taking an interest in their child's athletic, prowess. You know what I mean? This person this child is really good at athletics, so I need to hone that. And they go to different camps and stuff like that to get developed. That's why people like Cam Newton and all the rest of those guys came from. And what's that? Warwick Dunn and all the rest of those guys came up because of other athletes who went to the NFL and saw a need that had to have other kids get developed. So when I look at stuff like that, it's the system that we have doesn't promote, having everybody's talents viewed and honed like a skill, like a knife, like a blade. You see what I'm saying? So that's how I look at it now. It's not specialized. It's just like it's rubber stamped. It's like boom, you go through. You know what I'm saying? And the kids really don't have a direction for their lives. So I think that's one of the major differences between education back then and then today. And you have to realize my generation came up. We were the first generation that had personal computers in our schools. So we grew up with computers. So computers are nothing new for us. But at the same time, the generation that we have now, they know nothing but computers. And especially with handwriting and stuff like that, we were taught how to do handwriting because that was a thing to do. You know what I mean? But now it's like our parents said, they just text and just do whatever. But you know, when you have to write, you have to know how to spell. You know what I'm saying? You have to learn how to read. You know what I mean? You're a little bit more educated, so you're not confusing musician for magician. You know, as Suki said the other day. You know what I mean? That type of thing.
I don't think.
Exactly. I don't think. You know what I mean? That type of thing. And I was ashamed when I saw that. I was like, man, who rubber stamped her through school, man? You know what I mean? when you had to write a letter, man, or you had to actually think and compose it and then write it down, because there is no erase with no ink pen. You know, you can write it with a pencil, but that's not preferred. And you know what I'm saying? So that's one thing, one aspect that I see when I see people today, it's like they talk without thinking. You know what I'm saying? They don't form or have any consequences. They don't think their words have consequences, and they don't slow down to think, and they just say whatever. You know what I mean? They don't understand that this YouTube stuff is forever for people to come back and watch. You know what I mean? They're gonna be like, man, that was so stupid of them. That was so stupid. She said that. And it's forever. And you will be judged for that particular moment in time. But the good thing about it is that also people can go back and watch you grow. So it's just one of those things, man. We have to look at. Education needs to be flipped on its ears. You know what I mean? When I came up, you know, the teacher would give us the answer. I was always questioning the answers. You know what I'm saying? And it's just one of those things. I used to get into it with my 7th grade teacher real bad because she was teaching us wrong, and I would let her know she was teaching it wrong. So me and her got into it, and they had to call my parents, and my dad was like, well, was he right? And she was like, well, yeah, but he shouldn't have said it. He said, ma'am, you should have prepared. You know what I'm saying? You got kids in here smarter than you. You need to pay attention. You know what I'm saying? You got to pay attention. I really did get into it with a lot of my teachers because I read more, I studied more. They didn't really understand. I was like, school's like pretty much boring when it comes down to instruction, but when it comes to applying things, that's when I came alive, when I can actually put my hands on it and I can understand how this is going to serve me in the future. So I think education needs to focus on how it can serve people in the future. Go ahead, Stephanie.
While you're talking, it reminds me of where the true state of education is. We're giving more liberty, and the rights to students and taking it away from the parents and the teachers.
Right.
So now, in fear of everything, and because you can't do this, you can't do that, you really can't take these kids by the reins and sit them down, let them know how to do it, because now you're afraid that you're going to lose your job. So it's like the kids are running things, and you know, kids, they don't have any sort of you know
They think they know everything.
Smarts about life and think how things go, what's important, what's not. So that's where it is. The children have more rights in the situation, and the parents and the teachers have to take a back seat to it. And that's where we are right now. Because I know my teachers, they weren't having that back in the day. They were very disciplinary, and you kind of feared your teachers. Now kids, they don't fear them. They're fighting their teachers. It's just a whole nother level. So,
but you don't think that's the parents' fault? You don't think that's the parents' fault? I think, I think because I think you said it yourself, but I'll be real short. But I think it's the parents, because you have to set the table as a parent. And the fact is, we need to talk, when we have these conversations, we need to talk about class. We can't just talk about the way people get educated in the inner cities and in public schools is different than the way we're educating our kids if you live in a more upper class neighborhood. Not even upper class, just a neighborhood that's functioning, with a functioning school and stuff like that. It's completely different. and it still stems from the parents. I mean, like I said, my kids are millennial and a Z, but they don't they were disciplined, and that was because of me and my wife, right? So when they went to school, well, they did go to a Christian school as well. Even though I paid an exorbitant amount of taxes in the place I'm at, I still sent them to somewhere where they had some discipline, just a little bit of discipline in the classroom. So I didn't mind that, but still, I still had to do the prerequisites. Like both my kids had a place to study. They didn't have TVs in their room. So they had to do their homework when they got home. And my whole out thing was, listen, the only thing we want you to do right now is do your homework, respect your teachers, and come back, and just get good grades.
Arpain, let me ask you a question. How
So,
much
and
were
I
you
think
in?
the mother had something to say. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. What I want to know is how much were you involved with the hands-on education of your kids?
I was really involved. I mean, I was real involved. I mean, but it was well. Sometimes just like the social engineering that we're under as Black people, you plant seeds and then it has a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Mhm.
Once I got my kids set up, I didn't have to rule over them. They just started to go on autopilot, right? And I would check in and see what they would do. And as long as they did their homework, I looked at their test scores, and I just stayed up on them. But see, when they were in their formative years, and I'll be real quick, I made sure two things that I had two girls. I wanted them to be able to read, and I didn't want them to be afraid of math. Right.
Absolutely.
So when they were kids, real young, they were reading early, 3, 4 years old. So and that's
You bring up a good point because I wanted to make the point that the reason why the education system is different now than it is because the parents were more involved and it was more of a cooperative, more of a collaboration.
Thank you.
Because when I got home from school, my dad would like, let me see your homework.
Mhm.
I want to see exactly what you're working on. And then if it was something that he didn't understand, he would call the teacher and say, hey, what are you trying to teach the kids because we're stuck? You know what I'm saying? That type of thing. And we would sit down and we would talk about it. So when I got back to school, my teacher would have already known that my homework was done and we were a chapter ahead. So when she taught in class, we asked questions. You see what I'm saying? It was more of a collaborative thing. And of course, when we had parent-teacher meetings or whatever, the teachers already knew who our parents were. And also we knew not to get into trouble acting a fool in class because we already knew that our teacher had our dad on speed dial. You see what I'm saying? So there was none of this cutting up in the back of the class with your buddies when you should be doing your studies. You see what I'm saying? So that's the reason why I asked you that question. How much, involvement did you have with the schooling of your kids as well, too? You didn't just leave it to happenstance.
No.
Mm-hmm. You took right what I was going to say is like your parents was more involved. You couldn't be up in there cutting up because your parents came and the teacher told what was most likely going to happen to you. You was going to get it. If you didn't get it there, most likely when you got home, you knew what was going to happen. And you was going to go back to school. You was going to be all right because you wasn't going to cut up your parents already. You wasn't going to show your parents up.
And see, then, when like I was going to school, and I mentioned too on my other show with Paul, I went to Greece mostly. There's two people you're scared of mostly. It's your teacher and your parents. Because teachers back then, you can whip your goddamn ass. And if your teacher didn't whip your ass, guess who's whipping your ass at home? Your parents. Back then in Greece, like they couldn't really teach you because that's the teacher's job. If the report card is full, I mean you were screwing up. So why were you screwing up? Your parents were asking you. I remember the first time I had an issue in school, in American school. I had my instructor, and some of you guys know, I was a karate instructor one time, and I told my instructor, like, Master Ray, I go, I'm having this problem. He goes, ask her. Ask her what? Ask her why you need to be in math class. Ask her why you have to go to English. Ask her. If she comes to you just because, or you have to, she doesn't give a shit about her job. She doesn't need you there. If she gives you a real definition, then you go there. So I went up to my first teacher. It was can't remember which one it was, to be honest with you. It was a home tech or something like that. I asked him, excuse me, I go, Why do I have to be here? And he just gave me this big lecture, like, not because I had to, because do you want to learn how to cook? Do you want to learn how to sew? Do you want to learn, life skills? Do you want to X, Y, Z? Then he started throwing women in there. And that got my attention, obviously. And he goes, oh, you want to, cook a good, dinner and bring it to her, breakfast in bed to your wife? Oh, okay. This kind of makes sense here. Okay. Then on to my next teacher. It was math teacher. Like, oh, what do I like? Because you have to. I don't question. Just go sit down. No. I don't need. I have to. I need to. Tell me a goddamn fucking reason why I need to learn this. So he goes, because you need to. I don't need to do shit. At this point, I was a little punk ass, of course, too. But that's the problem. I think even to this day, because they teach the job. Most teachers, from where I say, don't do it because they love doing teaching. They do it for the paycheck. End of the day.
And you can tell.
I'm sorry.
I'm saying you can tell too.
Oh God, yeah, 100%. And that's one thing I would agree with you said earlier. Like, if you go in school or job or whatever as a career, not as a paycheck. I remember when I started cooking, I hated cooking, but I learned over the years to love it, and I hate it. If you hate it, you're gonna be miserable. And I did, and I do one thing I do love is helping people. That's why I work for hospital and healthcare. That's what, it goes on to the next question. And then I'm going to give Hashim the first question because I know he's old as time, as we always say.
Hold on before you get to the next question. Let me
Okay, Grandpa.
Seasoned.
There you go. I like that better. Let me ask this question first. Let me maybe ask this before we go on to the next one. I know back when your teachers was older, your parents used to go to class. It was more of a respect thing. Now it seems like these teachers, I know when mine were going, they're much younger. So is it a thing of, do these kids, do they respect them because they look at them as the same level than how we did when we was going, or what you say about that?
That is a good question. I guess that thing is a catch-22. I think it's like a respect for like when I see a teacher who's like not that old, can you respect somebody who's older? I'll use Payne for example. He's like up there, and like if I see somebody like Hank walking in the classroom in a suit tie, with a groomed beard and everything, I'm like, yeah, I respect that guy because he's a teacher, and like I'm gonna be scared he's gonna kick my ass in the end of the day. But if I walk somebody like who's 21, just came out of school, yeah, I'm not gonna respect that. What the hell did he know?
I know a lot.
I'm trying to think back when I was young. I mean, I think we had a mix. I know the people who were the administrators, they definitely were older. But as far as some of the teachers, we had a couple of young teachers. The ladies that were there, they were married young. So like I still remember my math teacher from high school. She had to be in her 20s. But she was married, and she made sure everybody called her Mrs. And but so it was a mix. It was really a mix. But all the administrators were old in the tooth, man. They all were, so.
Mr., Mrs., a lot of them, they came dressed for the occasion. They had their tie, they had, it was dressed. Now, I know when I used to go to open school night with my daughters and them, a lot of these, the women teachers, they was in tight dress. Some of them had on spandex with a little longer, how the women have maybe like a long, what you call it, like a sweater thing like that. It was more revealing. Yeah. And so that's what I'm saying. When these kids go now, are you respecting them or what? To me, that part of it is a little
begging them. What are you talking about?
Oh my God. You're absolutely right.
They're absolutely right. They even doing that now. So it's like, where's the respect in it? And if you're doing that, are you really going to learn? Are you thinking about learning?
You're not learning. You know what? I mean, I don't want to segue into that, but the teachers, the female teachers are so stupid. There is no way a teenage boy could ever keep that under wraps. There's no way. There's absolutely no way he's gonna tell somebody.
Hey, he's gonna tell. And then he's gonna go to the next one, and then next thing she losing her job. For what?
She need to lose more than that.
Our pain, we had none of that. All our teachers was like in their 50s and 60s, man.
Yeah.
They had on long flower dresses, looking like Little House on the Prairie. You know what I'm saying? We was focused.
When I moved from New York to up here, and there were some young teachers. I was like, my icon, like, hello, hi, hey, I know you. And like, do I know you? Like, nope, you're gonna learn me very fast. I'm like, I think back like, damn, I never had had a chance, or B, they're not gonna risk it. But now it's more and more coming out the news like these days. Not now. All of a sudden, teachers are sleeping with students. I'm like, what happened? I'm scratching my head like,
But
are
the
you
answer
that
is
desperate
yes.
for that?
The
You need to
age
go
does
young,
matter.
young.
The age does matter. That's the answer. The answer is yes. I mean, some of that it does matter.
And then you had to say Mr., Mrs. It was like that. I don't think they do that
Absolutely.
now.
I
It's so,
still call people ma'am, and so they're like,
ma'am.
"Don't call me that. That's my dad." I'm like, "Hello, I'm trying to respect you," and they
Yeah.
don't even want it. Most people don't even want it. So there's like, "Where are you from? The South?" I'm like, "No, I'm from Boston." I'm just a
That
respectful
shouldn't
person.
even
They
matter where
don't
you're
want to
from.
receive it. Yeah, it's weird. It's
But then again, coming from your parents back then, you had to say ma'am or Mrs. or Mr. You couldn't just call somebody out on a
No,
name.
yeah.
no, it couldn't.
So
Yeah.
that was a different too. You had to be respectful.
Were there more fathers in the home?
Yeah,
Because now
for
we
me,
don't really have a lot of fathers in the home, and so structure does come from men. And my dad, he was just very strict, preacher man, like, oh God, it was crazy. But a lot of people that don't have dads, guys and girls, they really can't, like what Mr. Payne says, like have that autopilot feeling, because we should see more children acting correct and right, and things like that. And like, these teachers wouldn't be so apt to be fooling with these children because I know your dad, or he could kill me, or you know what I'm saying. It just seems like
Yeah.
there's something that's gone in the father for me.
You know
See, it
what
was
else I
another
noticed too?
YouTuber.
We had more male teachers too when we
yes,
came up. We
Yeah.
had way more male teachers, and the teachers would never call you by your first name. They would call you by your last name.
that's
Yeah.
right.
We had a teacher named Mr. Satterfield. He was like, I taught your daddy, boy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I was like, man, wait a minute. You taught my daddy. He said, I knew your daddy, boy. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, oh, man, I guess I better not cut up then. You know what I mean? So, and now the vice principal was my daddy's cousin. So, of course, I wasn't finna get into none of that. You know what I mean? We had way more male teachers than we had female teachers. And I think that the student body population was different. As I remember when I was coming to school, the football team, we used to meet up at least once a month, and we would bring in a respected person from the community. Like, I think one time we had the mayor of Birmingham come in, and he talked to the guys. We called it the Breakfast Club, and all the guys would always wear their tie to school, so everybody always knew, when it was Breakfast Club day, because the fellas wore their ties to school that day. You know what I mean? And getting them ready for the future. Say, hey, eventually you're gonna have to learn how to wear that tie, bro. So you might as well go and learn early. So we had to learn how to tie a tie. We had to learn how to iron our shirts, shine our shoes, all of that stuff. Because when you have respected people from the community coming in to talk to you, you want to make sure that you represent. You know what I mean? He used to come in and talk to us about different things, about life, the direction of your life, that type of thing. So I think that's something that's missing too. You know what I mean? As we get older, we should want to reach back to the next generation and say, hey, look, what is it that you want to do? And if you want to do something, here's what you got to do. That type of thing. This is what you can expect.
So
Don't always think you could be a firefighter. There's other things that you could be too.
But look, on your point though, right? When you say it's lost, it was how the frog in the daggone heated water, and then it's dying and you don't know it.
Yeah.
Because what I'm saying is, how did we get from, in certain societies where they respect their elders, where the youth, they hate us, man, they hate baby boomers. They hate anything we got to say.
Right.
They blame how their plight today on people back then and the older Gen Xers. Now, I don't remember having any smoke for the people from the greatest generation or the silent generation when I was growing up. I didn't even think about it. They were my elders.
Yeah.
Right.
So how did so we don't have to solve it here, but you could just see since I keep the family tree in my family from the greatest generation, I see the decomposition of family as it spreads out. and stuff like that. So it's just amazing. I don't know how you get it back. See, what I'm thinking is that I saw some panels with some Gen Zs on it, and they started using the term again, work-life balance, right? How to find a way to make to make a living. They're not, a lot of them aren't thinking about having children, but not for the negative reasons.
Right.
They're just saying they look at the burden of having kids and they don't want to do it. They don't even want to have a relationship. And it's not even like they're all sleeping around, but there's some of them are. But they're talking about how do we survive in this new environment and take control of it. And maybe they feel that they have to turn off the old guys and gals because what they were told didn't help them. It doesn't work. What you said just doesn't work today. And I don't know how we get it back. I mean, unless it's like a purge of mindset that has to happen, and some of it has to be self-induced, or they have to ask you. Like somebody young has to come to you, lit, or you, Mr. What's your name, Mr. I don't know this gentleman. You're right there. Whatever
Hashim.
your name is.
Hashim the Wise.
Hashim? Okay.
Hashim? Yeah.
Hashim? Okay. So it's like someone has to come to you, and I know you wife too. Somebody has to come to you and ask you something, as opposed to you telling them, right? Because they're not ready to receive it unless they're asking you a question. And they say, hey, listen, from what your experience is, how do I do this? How do I do that? How should I look at this thing so they can weigh what they know against what your experience is? Mm-hmm. And maybe they'll conform, maybe they'll take heed to what you're saying, maybe they won't. But if they ain't asking, you really can't tell. You really can't tell them. You know what I'm saying?
They don't want to hear it. I'm
gonna tell you where it comes from, man. It comes from the people around that generation not seeing respect given. Now, I'll give you an example. Yesterday, when we had the podcast, I made sure I gave you your flowers in front of everybody and made sure to respect you for your wisdom. You know what I'm saying? Anytime you got somebody who's been married for as long as you have, you should shut up and listen to what they have to say. You know what I'm saying? And anytime I have a show, I'm gonna make sure I give you your flowers out of respect. You see what I'm saying? You're not my contemporary. You're my elder, and I'm going to respect you as such. So that's one of the things that we have to let the next generation know. Whenever they try to give you a hard time, you ever notice I be stepping in, man?
Yeah.
Like, hey, y'all got to get off my man our pain.
Sometimes it might be deserved, but even that, nobody's perfect, right? You might say something wrong here and there, but that still doesn't give you leave to say what you want to say to somebody. Not like that. You know what I'm saying? Right. I would never do that. I mean, my elders weren't always right, but it was a time and place to say, hey, maybe on this issue we can look at it differently. Right. But that's another thing. But I appreciate that. But see, and I don't even feel like some kind of maven, man. But I could be more judicious, but I see the changes. Right. A lot of the people who are living in the moment now, they can't see how what happened in the past is connected to what's happening now.
That's because they haven't lived long enough.
Right, that's what I'm saying. And they just think they just popped out in a vacuum. And there's a reason why you feel and think and things are doing the way it's going. And sometimes you need the clues from the past to help you navigate what's going on now in the future.
So here's the thing, Payne, and it goes for Hashim too. Hashim, I know him for a few years now. I might break on him, I bust on him. That's the kind of relationship me and him. And I have said it on the air. I'm gonna say it one more time to you, Payne. I do have a lot of respect for you because from what you've been into now, you have a lot to teach us. This is why I wanted you on this show so much. That's why I've been bugging you for a couple of weeks to come on, actually. But we might joke around and stuff about when it comes down to serious. And people are cutting you off. It pisses me off. And I try to jump in too sometimes. I don't know if you have realized that. I'm like, yo, shut the hell up. Let the man talk. Because he has more to teach. And when you guys going back and forth, there's no point of going back and forth.
Yeah.
Respectful
I know that.
And calm.
I'm trying to be different now.
What's up?
I'm trying to be different, man. I'm trying to be different.
You know what,
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
You know what, what I've noticed that we had guys who did the same thing when we were coming up. They would always say, oh, those old guys don't know what they're talking about. Well, guess what? They the old guys now. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So whenever you see these young whippersnappers talking about, Payne, you don't know what you're talking about, let them keep living. You know what I'm saying? They're gonna see for themselves. And then when the next generation tell them they don't know what they're talking about, that's when it slaps them in the face. You know what I'm saying?
It's
So
gonna be you.
let them have at it, man. I just want to be a fly on the wall when it happens.
Because it is gonna happen. It's definitely
you keep living, it's gonna happen. You know? I love it.
So before we move on, I want to read a couple of comments. I have one from Stacy, our official, unofficial cheerleader. She was saying, I was always involved with my kids' education when they were younger. I would check their homework and try to teach them how I knew. I give her credit. Same one twice. Excuse me. Here it is, the other one. Now there are things that are larger differently. From example, core of math. She has a good point. You know, some parents don't know the difference anymore of, let's say, algebra. I suck at algebra, to be honest with you. Back then, it was completely different than now. Things had so involved. And
long
here's
division,
the thing where,
short division.
I'm sorry?
Long division, short division. A lot of things that went on. I know I damn near with my kids had to go back because I was sitting there looking like, what in the world is this? I thought I was doing right, and some of that homework was coming back, and I was like, this teacher don't know what she's doing. I had to go back because it was different.
They hit you with that core math, didn't it?
And that's the next subject I want to hit too, is the evolution of education has changed so much. Think about how it was back in the day. Everybody was in one little building, and maybe 100 of you guys, whatever. I'm just using an example. Back in the medieval times with, that teacher had a big stick in her hand, going back and forth, up and down. You all say quiet, all learned the same shit. It didn't matter what grade. It was no grade back then. Now, all of a sudden, you have, first grade, second grade, all the way down 12, and it changes. In some schools, obviously, you rotate, classes and so on. In some countries, just say it. And in some other ones, you are with the same classmates from the day you start first grade all the way to you graduate. So think of how much school has evolved now. And please correct me. I know some of you guys have kids in school. Please correct me. Now they give you laptops on your first day of school, and you have to hand them back.
Yeah, in some schools, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, but let me just say one thing on this point. I knew with my kids when they were coming up, I knew when not to tell them stuff too. Like, for example, I was never good at taking those SATs and stuff like that. No matter how hard I tried, right? No matter how much I did on regular exams, those tests I was just always average. And so I made sure I never mentioned that to my daughters at all. That I didn't like those tests. I just never said it, so they didn't get a subconscious tap from me saying to them that those tests were unfair, and this and that, because I didn't want to taint, their thoughts about them, and some other things. I just let them ride. When they were doing all right, I didn't try to correct things. And the other thing I did too, and for anybody out there listening, my daughters were good in school, and one time my daughter came home and she got one question wrong. And I spent an hour talking about the damn one that was wrong, as opposed to the rest of the test that she got right. She had like a 90-something in there. And my best day in school, I didn't come home with no 90s, And I caught myself and said, oh, my God, man, what am I doing? So sometimes you got to look what you're focusing on. So I flipped that script real fast and said, I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't concentrate on what you got wrong. Just I might mention and say, well, how did you figure out what you did, and then move on,
You know what? I think a lot of times our pain that we probably should do. When I was doing math, when I came up, high teachers get on me about giving the answer, not showing my work.
Yes.
And she's like, look, Jay, I know you know how to get an answer, but I need you to show your work. I was like, why I gotta do that? That's a waste of time. I gave you the right answer. She said, no, I need to see how you thought this thing through. But what she didn't realize is that my dad used to teach us how to solve a problem multiple ways. Because he said, when you get older, he said, that's how life is going to happen. You're going to try to solve one problem one way. When that way doesn't work, then what do? You see what I'm saying? So one day she got smart and she's like, I need you to show your work. I said, how many times you want me to do it? I gave you about 6 different ways how I solved it. And then she looked at me like I was crazy because that was a part of my practice. Yeah. And it works the same way in anything, whether you're writing a story. Can you write it in a persuasive way? You know what I mean? Can you write it from a third person? Can you tell it from a storytelling version? You know what I mean? How you want this thing? You know what I mean? Do you want me to hide the answer?
You should have told me, give me your answer for each one of these 6 different ways.
Right. I'll give it to you how you want it. You know, I'll give it to you how you want it. So one day I got smart and I wrote it down 6 different ways, and she looked at me like I was crazy, and I winked at her. I said, anything else? You know what I mean? I was one of them kids, man. But it's one of those things that we have to think about. Instead of pigeonholing kids into thinking one way, we should reward them on how to solve a problem multiple ways.
Yeah.
Because when you get to a job, when everybody's trying to solve a problem the same way and it doesn't work, who stands out?
Right.
The person who thinks differently. And I think that's what makes us special.
Absolutely. My son, he's on the spectrum, and he's really good at math. And you give him a number, he's just like, so. And you're like, what? Okay, now you're trying to play with him. You throwing stuff like, do this, do that. Right. And sometimes people, they can really be low-key jealous.
Absolutely.
They ain't that low-key. They ain't that low-key. They just jealous.
You could just throw you could just say the number. I don't even have to write it. And he can just what do you computate or whatever, put it up together.
Calculate it. Yeah.
And I just think that is just the most amazing thing. Now, when it translates into the school, now it has to translate to how they operate, which is showing your work, writing it out. What if he can't do it? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? So it's like now I have to do my job to help him get whatever is in his head out. But it's kind of hard because if has some spectrum or autism, how do you know? They think way differently than the normal person. So it's like, man, this is a lot. So I'm on the learning curve. So I got to defend my son in his reasoning and trying to put something in the middle. You know what I'm saying? So it's always constant speaking up, advocating. Well, okay, what do you want from him? He gave you, like you said, we gave you the answer.
Right.
Okay, give him another answer. Okay, he gave you the answer. What's the problem? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's tough. It's tough, and a lot of people are facing. And the children, they are sick. They do have these deficiencies. With the autism and things like that, and it is really sad. So how do those children get passed along so that they can function and be normal in society? You know what I'm saying? So that's tough too. And I have 3 different children, mind you. Not all of them think the same. Not all of them work the same. And so identifying each child's strengths and weaknesses and working with them. And my mind is all over the place. My mind is all over the place all day, every day. Because I got 3 different individuals and I have to accept them as 3 different individuals.
The good thing you mentioned that, because your mind, how do you keep it all together so good?
Well, here's the thing. You have to realize that people see the world differently.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. Kids who are good at math, some more than often are usually good at music too, because music is nothing more than math. And you have some people who see music as colors. You see what I'm saying? So they see the world through music, through colors. And some people see music through numbers, because that's how I was. Music to me was numbers. All you have to do is count up how many steps. And if you want to change key, it's the same thing. It's just different numbers. You got the same 8 numbers. You know what I mean? You got half steps. So to change keys, you go up 1 and everything else slides 1. You know what I'm saying? So to me, music was nothing more than math. And you'll find out your kid will associate math with something else that you never realize until it reveals itself. So always expose your kids to different things so they can tie it together. And you'll be surprised what genius arrives from them.
And then you'll find out some kids are better. I mean, they might be academic wise, they might be able to do well in school, but they don't know how to apply it to real life. So when you get to music, is one of those kind of things where people can see and they know how to apply. So my youngest daughter, she's a musician and she's an architect. But the one thing that she was different is that she could apply what she learned. She knows how to apply. I mean, it's like a gift. And then her mind is really compartmentalized. I mean, she's focused, right? So when I used to tell her stuff, I said, I see your mind figuring out where my stupid request fits into your little compartment. You know what I'm saying? I want you to put it on the top, because I want you to do this, And so I had to say that to her because she said, I could just see her thinking. She said, well, I got all these things I want to do. So maybe your shit fits down here somewhere. I said, no, 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 no. Put it right up here right now. Get it done. And you can go back. But it's weird how she thought. My older sister was a little bit different, but she was something else. But she plays music. When she started learning how to read music, like you said, it's a language.
It is. Music is nothing more than a language.
Yeah, it's a language.
It's a universal language that transcends everything and understanding. People, here's the thing: you can feel music, and music transcends all understanding. So generally, if somebody is real good at music, they're probably good in linguistics too. You know what I mean? So they may be able to understand English, and then they can pull the French out of it. They can pull the Spanish out of it because most of those are root words from Latin anyway. So they can pretty much understand it. So if you go to another country, when you are good at math and music, you can hear it in the language. And people don't think that math is a language when it really is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It certainly is.
I definitely don't know how to speak that language.
We know how to speak it when it comes to bill payments.
Give you defense. You had 16 women in your life, 16 girls you had. So I gotta give you my hat to you, man. I don't know how you deal with all those girls.
16 girls. Okay, where are we going with that?
Let's get back on topic here. The question I really have a question for our wife here, because you deal with 3 kids, and I know you're flying solo. How do you keep it straight sometimes, not losing it?
Lots of sleep. Give everybody their equal attention, or we all do stuff together. Make it intentional to, even though I may be tired, to check in on what my kids are doing. Pay attention to their interests. It makes me feel good. I ask them every day, how was school? What happened? My son, he's like, I didn't have a good day. Well, I said, well, what did they do? So I try to still remain open to them, even though I may be tired and I work overnight and I'll be on panels all night. And this is the kind of way I kind of decompress, like talking to adults instead of children. So that helps.
Well, how old is your oldest?
She is 13.
13?
And my boys are 10. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's what you said. You had twins, right?
I bet that's fun.
Double trouble.
It can be. It can be annoying, and sometimes they're synced up, sometimes they're not, and so they're just like, ah. So I'm like, oh my god.
Are they identical twins?
No. Thank God.
You know what? I think it's always this is when I always get a kick out of, when they're identical twins and the parents always mix up their own identical kids. He goes, this is Jeff, this is John.
Even if they twins, their parents know.
Yeah, the parents know.
I got one light skin, one dark skin. They was like, woo, I said, good.
Yeah.
Somebody
I
was
know
like,
parents that mix up their own kids
and
with
a dark
identical.
skin kid. I said, oh, 2 different baby daddy. And they're like, girl, you crazy. No, that's not. I have one husband, okay? That was just a joke. But yeah, I try to keep balance myself. I breathe a lot. I calm down a lot. Sometimes you get aggravated. Sometimes you have to be the adult and calm yourself down and, not deal with your children when you're angry or things like that. And, take time with them, make the time for your children. I find that works. I negotiate with them. We'll have a schedule, on Friday, today they wanted to go swimming and I'm kind of tired. So I'm like, so I'm taking my daughter to out of the state tomorrow. So I said, I want to spend time with her. She's kind of older. I want to, cultivate that with her because she's changing as well. And I don't want her to shut down and not tell mom stuff. So I'm on that end. And then with them, I said, okay, can we go out on Friday? I said, I get paid on Friday. I said, we go swimming and then we can go to eat at a restaurant. They're like, yeah, we can do that. And I was like, okay. So it's a lot of negotiating and, getting there, pushing them as well. And that makes me feel good. And they're good kids. They don't give me a lot of trouble. They give me some trouble, but not a lot of trouble.
Well,
Well,
they're
let
all
me ask
starting to
you.
transition though. They're all starting to
Yeah,
transition.
so now I'm getting to that transition phase. I'm like, help me, Jesus. So I'm like, man, I wish I could just ship them off to their old pops.
You
But
about to have all
No,
fun now.
I was saying they're transitioning into an age of where they have a little bit more reasoning as well.
yes, but
You know, and I mean, of course, they're still kids, but
they're still kids. But I
yeah,
mean, there's some things that a dad can do that a mom cannot
mom
do,
can't.
and
Yes,
I am rushing to that point in my life, and I'm like, oh my God, help me, Jesus. What?
See,
But
the
a
reason
lot
I
of
asked you that
prayer. I
You
question.
know
go to
what?
church.
I don't envy that, boy. I
I
swear.
go I read a lot, I research a lot, I pray a lot, I go to church a lot, I'm on panels a lot. So I keep my adult life busy, you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Then intentionally make the time for my children. I drive them to school. I'm I'm really in there. I'm really in there. So all that keeps me busy and keeps me tired and not in any trouble. So that's good. I'm in a good place.
Good.
So the reason
You
I
know
asked that
what
question
though? You know
earlier
what I
is
noticed though? I call you wife school
Mhm.
is that whole trope that I have to be mother and father and I'm all masculine. That shit. That's not you.
Mm-mm, mm-mm,
That's not you. You
mm-mm.
know that goes into that whole thing to ladies saying, "Hey, I gotta be all this. That's why I'm hard." No, no, no. You're hard because you choose to be,
Mhm.
not because you have to be.
That's
Because I'm still pining, not pining, but I would love to see the day when I see a man raising his kids and he says I have to be both man and woman. I was like,
I
come
They
on,
never
man.
say that.
I never
They
heard
would
a man
never
say that. I
They'll
never
never
heard
say
a
who's
that.
man
gonna
say
say that? I
that,
don't care how you cut it. I know 100 women would say, "I don't need a man." Like, oh yeah, how are you gonna multiply
man.
then? How are you gonna have kids
Our
with no
pain, you
man?
know where that comes from?
Mhm.
You know where that comes from?
Go ahead, I want to
Well,
hear it.
That comes from insecurity. It really does. It comes from insecurity where people feel like they're not enough, so they feel like they have to take credit so somebody could boost up their confidence and their
yeah.
security. So that's the reason why they do that. But you would never hear them admit that. You know what I
No,
mean? But if you
no.
stand back and you take a look at it, you'll see when people start to take credit for stuff that they really didn't do, or they start to take credit for other stuff, you know what I mean, to make themselves seem like they're greater than what they're doing, then that speaks to an insecurity that they feel like they're not enough. And I think sometimes women need to get support and say, hey, you don't have to be enough.
That's exactly
All
what.
you have to do is say, hey, I need a little help.
That's
And
right.
you'll be surprised at the amount of help that you get. But at the same time, you have to let everybody know instead of, trying to be insecure and try to beat your chest and all this other stuff, because you won't get help if everybody thinks you're strong.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Sometimes when
You
you're strong, you're not really letting your children go, too. You're
Right.
coddling them a lot and protecting them. And women, we coddle. The men, they'll let the children mess up and say, well, what did question you and allow you to develop in that, you know, and develop logically. So any chance that I get, any mentorship program, any youth male thing, I am like, here, take these little boys. And even with my dad, thank goodness I have my parents still here. I
Okay.
have my dad, he works, he goes out. I said, time to go get dirty. Go get them trash cans, or like, keep them busy, keep them thinking in masculine things, wanting to fix, wanting to problem solve. We
Right.
want our boys to be protectors and providers, but we won't allow them to get out and get into
Yeah.
those activities that build that muscle and that masculinity up for them. So I'm definitely not going to hold them back for that. But I know that I have my limits and I can't do that because I'm
Right.
not.
I always say that moms should give cuddles, but dad should give calluses. You know what I'm saying?
I totally agree.
You should
So,
always let your mom give you cuddles, but your dad should always help you develop calluses,
so
because those
originally,
calluses are going to help you be tough and do the things that you need to do when you don't feel like doing it. So everybody has a role. Everybody
Yeah.
has a role.
so the
That's great.
reason why I asked that question to you, wife, is because this goes across the board now. Is the mental health in school has changed so much. You might have one or two kids back in the day and saw a therapist or needed just to talk to the counselor or whatever. Now, I think almost like, I'm not sure the numbers. I have not looked them up, to be honest, but the percentage is pretty high. I definitely after COVID. Now, most kids go, to counseling daily. I feel when these kids are coming, graduating high school and going into the workforce after high school, college, I think most jobs are going to have a therapist in their building just in case when something pops off. So, what's you guys thinking about that?
I'll tell you what it is, man. This generation has basically been traumatized for so long that I think they've been desensitized. Ever since 9/11, this country has not been the same. You had a whole country who grieved, 9/11, and then a whole bunch of wars. Then after that, 2008, we had a financial crisis. Then after that, you know what I mean, we had all type of ups and downs with the stock markets, inflation. Then we had a few more wars in between then. And then we had another housing bust, .com bust. You know what I'm saying? It's just like everybody has been through a lot. And not to mention this latest pandemic has really done people in. Think about it. You had a generation of people who was outside, you know what I'm saying? And now everybody's inside. And now they don't know how to cooperate and cope because we've been going through and speaking to each other through cell phones and all this other stuff. So now we have to get back out in the open. So nobody knows how to talk to each other anymore. And that's probably the reason why we had these little gender wars, because the gender war interrupted some foolishness that was going on that had to get corrected. So now that the pendulum is swinging in a different direction, nobody really knows how to talk to each other. So that's the reason why a lot of people are suffering with mental illness, because they're starting to question, thanks to social media, is my life good enough? When people sit up and watch everybody's highlights and they try to compare their highlights to their fine print, man, their life doesn't seem so fantastic. So you got people on medication in record numbers when all they have to do is get back outside and stop playing on these phones and computers and start talking to people and start listening and stop talking so much. You know what I mean? That type of thing. And get back to relating to people on a heart level instead of a head level. Because when you start talking to each other on a heart level, that's when you start really seeing people and say, hey, I see your pain. And we develop those empathy calluses that we've lost due to social media. So I think what happens is people are struggling going from an era of being confined for the last 3 or 4 years to getting back outside and having to exercise those emotional muscles and those empathy muscles with other people, because people now, they don't want to hear that foolishness. You know what I'm saying? If you can't do something for me, I don't want to hear it. But see, that's not how that works. You see what I'm saying? You have to make sure that you see people and you meet people where they are. And that's how you develop friendships. Mm-hmm. That's how you develop relationships at its core. That's right. Instead of what can you do for me? If you're special to me, I'm going to do for you regardless, because
thank you.
You're my person. I want you to be around with me forever. You know what I'm saying? I want to have some adventures. You know what I'm saying? I want to go on some adventures with you and have a good time. And we want to get old and talk about it. You say, man, remember that time we was down there in Cancun? We acted a fool. And then after that, we went to Japan. We had a good time. Remember that time that dog chased you and you tore your pants on that fence? All type of funny stuff. You know what I mean? That is the stuff that makes relationships last. That is where friendships are forged in the fiery crucible, of life. You know what I mean? I think that's one of the things we have to get back to and get off the medication, and start getting back to talking to people again. And I think that's probably the reason why we have the situation we're now, because we're transitioning, going back from being cooped up to being let outside. But we have to realize we have to get back to learning how to operate with each other again as humans instead of things,
Well, yes, I agree. I agree, but there's a level more than that. Like, okay, we're operating in our world, but there's more lies and deceptions out here than anything else. We got government lying to us, and now we got things coming out that wasn't true about getting certain things, and maybe we didn't have to be cooped up. Right. You know what I'm saying? Or it's just so much lies that are confusion to keep us with that side eye. Like, okay, I'll get close to you, but like, hold on, what you here for? What's your assignment? Certainly. So it's it's an extra layer of that,
right.
And that's just the bad part. Like, we're coming close, but it's like, I heard, It's
Right.
like we just can't go all the way. And we just got to get back to being good people. Like we're not good people anymore. People, like you said, it's transactional, and what you can do for me, and like, okay, well, you made me work hard, and you release, you know what I'm saying? I got fired from my job because I didn't comply, but now you let 10,000 people over the border.
Right.
So who am I? What do I mean? What's my life? You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's a lot of distrust going on, and a lot of undermining things, behind the scene thing, and it's just bad. And we all feel it. We're feeling the tension. Okay, why aren't you talking about what's really going on in the other world? Like, are we at war? Are we not? Are we just sitting here, hoity-toity, eating our Panera bread, and then next thing you know, what's going on? Like, it's bad. So the world is kind of funky
Well,
right
so white school. Now that you know that we're in the matrix,
now.
and you know that we unplugged. See, there's something to be said to stop being ignorant.
Of course, this is what
Because now,
education.
once you're not ignorant anymore, that means you got to do something.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Not you. I'm just saying in general. So people have to do. And when I look around, I don't know how we counteract the social engineering program that we're under, because it's already on autopilot, and it's not just black people either. It's everybody. It's everybody in different ways. It's insidious, because what works for us in our community, the seeds that they plant here are different than the seeds they plant in the white community. You know what I'm saying? They're the same, but they're different because the impacts are different because of our muscle memory is being. I mean, it could get real deep, but it's there. It's there because we all see it, right? How do we get into a point where we can't stand our women, they can't stand us? How do you get there?
I'll tell you, our pain
No.
more.
Before you answer that, but it's not an accident. That's what I mean.
Right.
It's
Right.
not by accident. Go
I'll tell
ahead.
you what we need. I'll tell you what we need. We need more cuddles instead of
Yeah,
calluses. You know what I'm
maybe
saying?
more cuddles. Yeah, more cuddles that are not transactional. That's what we
Hey,
need.
that's right. We need more cuddles. You know what I'm saying?
More
Instead
cuddles.
of calluses. You know what I'm saying?
If
That'll
anybody want to get free
take the
hugs,
man
you
right
know where
out
to
you,
reach
man.
me. And
You
want
know
to
what I'm
give a
saying?
free
I
hug,
always
you know where
heard
to reach
that you give somebody some sweets, man, it'll take the man right out of them. You know what I'm saying? I don't know nobody that's mad after some sugar.
All right. There you go.
That's true.
There you go.
I'm just
me.
saying,
Hashim,
man.
did you mellow
Bad.
down this?
It'll mellow you out right there.
I'm telling you, you be smooth over then.
So,
So, Groomin, you said you had a different question that you was working on.
yeah. So before we get,
Well, I mean, I don't want to. I was just curious. You got. Now I'm curious.
hold on. Before I go to my question, Hashim, do you have anything to add to that last question?
No, I have not. They said everything that I was especially we're gonna say, because you got so many people you worrying about what somebody else is doing in somebody else's life, where most of the time they're lying anyway.
Well, sure.
They're lying about what's going on, and you putting yourself down talking about why I can't be like them, and they not even telling the truth.
That's
They
right.
lying.
They
Yeah.
lying.
lying.
They're
Yeah.
lying, and then you putting yourself down. You feeling bad. You trying to get on medication because you can't be where they at, or what they doing, or what they so-called have.
Right.
That's
Right.
another issue. You know what it is, and it's a shame. And this internet, that's all you see. You can flick right now, and you probably your first 5-10 is I'm here. I'm doing this. We all up here. Come follow us here. People ain't really, where everybody getting this money to do this?
They lying.
Where they
So,
doing?
before I get
And
to my
most
other
of the
question, I got
time
two
you find
statements
out
really
the
fast.
next day, hold on. And the next day you find out they scamming, they stole from somebody, they want you to buy something, or
Right.
they ain't doing that.
That's true.
So, when the whole 9/11 thing happened, it's what about the time I met my best friend after he got shot. My best friend got shot 13 times in Iraq. Not one, not
Wow.
twice, 13. The guy is so messed up, it's not even funny. But what he got out of it, and he goes, I mean, like, I got screwed up. I got a lot out of it at the same time. I met my wife. I have a child. I have a beautiful house. I have this and that. I'm like, shit, somebody's so screwed up, physically. He's so positive. It's not even funny. But that is a time that I felt this war was different versus, let's say, Vietnam. We didn't give a shit about our soldiers. We were cursing, spitting on them, all that stuff. And now that's why the suicide rate for Vietnam soldiers is so high. My second statement. I know the guy. I mean, I talked to him a couple times. He's actually pretty big on the YouTube stream. He goes by Dan C. Bearded. Dan C. was originally a school teacher. After COVID, he got so disgusted with the school system, he literally just quit. Had everything set up for him. You know, retirement checked, pension checked, this check, that check. He had it pretty good, but he was disgusted. You know, sometimes I hear teachers that I know personally saying, "Yeah, they pay us, but they don't pay us that good. They expect us to pay for our equipment sometimes, pens, stuff like that."
I heard that.
That's not fair for them at all. And that goes to the question I wanted to ask: is to the education around us. What is the difference? Terms, conditioning, mental, physical, all around, that makes a successful education system in 21st century, 22nd century, 23rd century, 24th, and so on. Who one goes first? Floor is open.
I'll go first, man.
Go for it.
How we correct it is that we actually teach people to be free thinkers. Now, I know that's dangerous, but believe it or not, we make more progress when we have a bunch of people thinking freely for themselves, because they say necessity is the mother of invention. You know what I mean? We can't have everybody doing the exact same thing. You know what I mean? You can't have everybody cutting hair and selling barbecue sandwiches and doing nails. You know what I'm saying? That type of thing. We need some farmers, man. You need people to make toilet paper, toothpaste, you know, stuff that people do every day. You know, we need farmers. You know, we need everyday stuff. You know, we don't always need somebody to make gold chains all the time. Yeah, true enough, we need somebody to specialize in stuff like that. But at the end of the day, we need people to do the things that people need on a daily basis. We need people to explore alternate forms of energy. You know what I'm saying? Because as we get more and more populated, we're going to need more and more energy. And if we're going to need more energy, we're going to need more food. And if we're going to need more food, we're going to need more places to dump this trash. So we need to figure out how we're going to recycle this stuff. You know, we got to figure out how to come up with better ways of transportation. So there's a lot of things, and housing as well too. We got to figure out this housing thing. That's the reason why rent and mortgages are getting out of hand, and inflation, you know, and the money is an issue. But if you take it and one step at a time and make sure that people explore different things that they can solve, and take it out of the hands of the teachers and the people in the powers that be that says we should learn this, we should start questioning them and say why. We should also start looking at what we have deficiencies in our community. Everybody wants to be a tech giant now. Everybody wants to be a computer programming and IT. Well, what's so important about IT if you can't eat, if there's no food on the shelves? You know what I'm saying? The necessities are some of the things we don't specialize in. Think about it, man. When was the last time you heard of a textile mill being opened up here in America? We don't have any. You know what I mean? We may print t-shirts or whatever, but who actually made the actual shirt? You know what I'm saying? Most of that stuff is getting done in India and China and other places like that. Or who's making the semiconductors? That's coming out of Taiwan, TMC. You know, we finally opened up a microchip factory here in Arizona for the first time in America in a long time. You know, and that's for them to make computers for Apple. You know, so those are some of the things we have to look at, man, instead of just specializing in the one or few things that people think are sexy. Everybody can't be a rapper. We don't need no more rappers, y'all. So if you have a rap career that you want to take on, we good on that. You know what I'm saying? We need some folks that know how to make clothes. You know what I'm saying? We need some doctors and nurses. You know what I'm saying? And from time to time, we need some attorneys and more politicians to make sure that we craft this thing how we need to craft it. So my thing is this: in order for us to have a better educational system, we need to focus on people's talents and direct those people to where their talents is greatest, so we can actually make the best out of the resources that we have as far as people are concerned, because our greatest resources is our people, you know, and make sure we learn how to use our land and stuff like that. So that's my thing. We need to do is we need to make sure that we expand, our educational prowess and make sure that we specialize in things that people really don't specialize in. I was watching a video the other day and I was watching some guys scrape off, barnacles off a deep sea whale oil rig. I was like, man, who would have thought that was an actual job? A guy had on a whole aqua suit, what I'm saying, and burning off barnacles and fixing stuff on the side of these things. And I saw people on high power lines in China and fixing power lines. They didn't have that in school and say, hey, look, you too can be a power line worker. They didn't talk about that. They talk about football players, musicians, rappers, engineers, doctors, that type of thing. Yes, those things are needed, but I assure you, we need way more farmers than we need rappers. So my thing is this: we need to find those kids who want to be farmers and direct them in the path and say, hey, look, farming is good. You can leverage chemistry. You can come up with biochemistry, engineering, all that type of stuff, man, to make sure that we come up with better crops and how to sustain those, and pesticides, and we can expound on a whole lot of stuff, but education needs to be flexible now, instead of being stagnant and instead of just rubber stamping kids through school and them going out to the job market and say, hey, I have no prospects. But if you take your kids from an early age and expose them every year, you take them to a different field trip or a different job or whatever, instead of having, take your kids to take your parents to school. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? We need to take your kids to your work and see what you do for a living. You know what I mean? And then find out what other kids do and just rotate it around. And then come back to school and say, hey, look, this is how your lessons apply to the real world. So that way kids get excited about school again. So that way they can rely on their experience and say, hey, look, I can actually do this. And they can see a job that was never even in their thought process that they could do. You know what I'm saying? So I think our education system needs to be flexible, so that way we can actually combat problems in the future that we don't even know that we need help with yet.
I like what you said, and all that is true. But the farming, a lot of these kids, who's getting up early to do that? A lot of these kids ain't getting up early. They don't want to even get up early to go to school now or to go
Absolutely.
to work. They're getting up, what, 8, not even 8, 9,
I will tell you this, most of the farming, I will tell you this, I've done research on it. Most of the farm is mechanized now anyway. So yeah. I've done research on bees and stuff like that. I want to learn how to raise bees and do stuff like that. But most of this farming now is huge monocultures. So there's only like one crop that they deal with. You know what I'm saying? If you're going to deal with corn, and you're a corn specialist.
But that's due to the regulations of the USDA.
Yeah, but the mechanism he's talking about is secondary. The fact is, we still need farmers. Doesn't matter whether,
because we still need food.
Yeah, so a lot of stuff that we need to change is going to be hard. That's what I'm saying. So none of it is easy. The only thing I was going to say, and I know kind of cut in, but I think we need to stop apologizing when we're right.
Right.
We should stop apologizing for the things that we say are right, even if it's not mainstream stuff.
Right.
We're worrying about, people are worrying about being canceled, even when they're right, even when they're absolutely right. And it's funny
because everybody worrying about their money.
Well, yeah, but you know what? Your money is not. They could take your money anyway. Yeah. So listen. The thing that I used to just like everybody else, I used to despise Candace Owens until I started listening to some of the things she says.
Mm-hmm.
And she's been spot on for so many things. Okay, she's a swirler. Okay, well, I don't have to go to sleep with her husband. You know what I'm saying?
So anyway, hang on a second. Before we move on too far, I wanted to give Doctor a shout out.
I was going to get back to that, but okay, go ahead. Yeah,
shout out, of course, the real doctor's in the house, like always. Salute to him. And anything to say before we move on?
No. What up, Doc? Welcome to the show, sir. So glad you to join us, sir. Glad to see you smiling all the time, sir. Appreciate you. Thank you, man.
Thank you. I feel honored to share in the space with you all. Great minds and people who have wisdom and sharing it here. So I'm glad to be part of this conversation and sharing in this space. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Like I told you in my email record, you're always going to have a seat at my table. And I meant that.
Awesome. I appreciate the opportunity.
Anytime. So we're in the
So
middle
yeah,
of
let me just
talking.
get back to what I was going to say here.
Go
I
ahead.
mean, I'll bring it back to what you asked though. You know, because all that's part of it. If you want to make corrections, we got to know it's not going to be easy, and everybody's not going to come with us. Everybody's not going to be a part of that. You know, I mean, that's the one thing we got to come to grips with. The other thing I was saying, I know people don't want to say this. I'm not going to talk politics, but our mind's got to be more conservative. We got to be more conservative, you know, in terms of what we allow into our community as parasites on our backs. You know, because every time we move, there's parasites who suck the wind out of our sails, and they never give us anything back. You know,
Amen.
you know. So we have to, you know, the little small things when people say black and brown community. Well, who's the brown? I mean, you know, it's just, you know, it's just, you know, it's really just us. And when I say us, doesn't mean just black and skin. It's mentality. You know, people who want to move forward and say, hey, listen, what's going on? And the liberalism is killing society. And I don't want to get into the specifics of it, but we can see it. The migrants coming in, they not only just because it's liberalism, but they're bringing in all the elements of society with them. Not just people who are looking for the American dream. They already got cartels already set up. You know, so. And it's not by accident. It's all by design, right under our nose. And we got politicians with black skin who are allowing it to happen. Because you can't say they're all naive. So I'm just saying, I don't know what we're going to do, but how we move forward is going to be really key. And one of the things we got to do is stop apologizing for being right and stop beating each other up. Like, for example, if you recognize somebody who's not going to get the message or the memo to move forward, I think we should stop arguing.
Right.
I think we should just stop arguing and say, okay, this person's not down.
And keep it moving.
And just keep it moving. And I'll land it there.
May I ask Arpane, what do you mean by, I mean, I know the words, but what do you finding people apologizing for?
Well, we apologize for being heterosexuals.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for example, you know, in a way, right? Because we're agreeing to all this bullshit kind of new language, right? I mean, we're apologizing for saying, listen, I don't think, you know, men with swinging Charlie should be in a girl's bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, you know, all those kind of things. We don't have to be homophobes for that. I mean, I reject somebody calling me a homophobe because I think they're stupid. Or these guys playing, this is just an example. It don't have to be with the LBGYN, whatever we call them guys. But, you know, the guys who are beating up the girls on the basketball court the other day, right? Or you know, so what are they playing? What are they playing girls sports for? When the girls had what was that, Title IX? Was it Title 10?
Title IX.
It was Title IX, right? Title IX was for women to be able to enjoy sports as women, right? Because we know how to compartmental things. Now, if a man, he can't compete with men, he could just say, I feel like a woman and take over all their sport. I mean, and we letting it happen, right? That's, to me, there's a form of like, okay, you know what, if I don't like it, man, but maybe, you know what, maybe you have a point, you know, maybe I'm too hard on these people because they have, we can't call it a mental illness, and that's exactly what it is. So I'm just saying that's one example, but we apologize to black women as men, right? When we know they're wrong, in order to keep curry favor, we apologize to them when they're saying stuff to us that they don't need to be saying. We apologize, and black women they don't apologize to nobody. So it don't work in reverse. It don't work. Too bad wife school ain't here, but that don't work.
Right. But
what I'm saying is
on another subject.
Yeah, no, but that's all part of us moving forward. If we want to change the school system, how could that be separate from some of the stuff I just said? They're grooming the kids in school system. In California, you know, they could take kids away from the parents if they don't agree to this affirming care and all that kind of stuff. How did that pass?
Right. So and part of the reason why I asked you and how it relates to the education system is interesting because not only stop apologizing, But are we even recognizing that we got to the point of apologizing unnecessarily so? And so where our systems, are systematically, we're getting beat down. So whereas before at a school, the argument was, well, did the parents show up? Did you ever show up? Did you ever show up? But then the system was set up to where it appeared that you don't need me to show up. Like kind of like you have my back, or you start putting in these programs where don't worry if you work, you can bring your, and don't worry if you, and we have the after school. And so there became this dependency on these systems. And now when you have the kids there and making policies and changing the way, whoa, you took out script, you took out handwriting, you took out vocational, you changed, you don't have you mean all this time my kid's been going, but for what we want as far as a college career, we should have been going to this program. And some communities won't say a word. I didn't know anything about accreditation. You didn't talk to my kid. We don't have the advanced classes. And so now we feel defeated and playing nicey nice. And then there are new systems in place where it seems like stripping of us of our rights, stripping of us, making sure we stay closed with our mouths and our power. And the most powerful kind of figurehead is now being, not now, but they're being accused of things systematically, slowly, surely being broken down to where you win. Yes, a boss. I'm sorry. Do what you want with the education program. And then it becomes competition for anybody. So that's why it's very interesting when you stop apologizing. I'm like, I don't stop apologizing, but recognize you're getting to that point of where it's almost like picturing a picture of Mr. T or some big whatever. And then now you see them at 80 years old where they just look fragile and weak and broken.
So what apologize, I should have said, and acquiescing to shit that we know is wrong. Might be even a better way.
Right.
So both of them. I mean, so it's just bad. I mean, listen, we got the president. How much embarrassment or how much what's the word? Disrespect should we take when he takes a bucket of fried chicken over to a black person's house and said, this is how I'm gonna relate to you. I'm gonna give you some fried chicken, and we're gonna sit around the table, and the only thing he didn't bring was the grape soda.
And the watermelon.
And a watermelon, a piece of watermelon and shit, man.
But which is worse? I don't care what you bring.
Right, but which is worse, the fact that you brought it or the fact that I'm accepting it?
Ooh.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, the father sitting around the table allowing that to happen.
Yeah,
pissed me off too. He pissed me off too. I could expect Biden to disrespect us, but how would
you bring sauce? I mean, like
and he bought a hamburger. I don't eat fried chicken, but I'm looking at this. I'm thinking, oh my God, what's
you like our Native American brothers? Beware of those bringing blankets.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying, because you cold.
Yeah, drink a little more. There you go. Oh, wasn't that just sit in the spot? Yeah.
Oh my God. I don't know, man. I feel sorry for us sometimes.
But is this Kiki Poo juice? My favorite.
I want to backtrack here for 1 second, Payne. I want to backtrack because I got a doctor here. I want to ask him a serious question. So I asked earlier at the panel about most kids now need therapy and all that stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. And I feel like jobs are going to have therapy in their workforce, in their sites.
Something wrong with that.
And before something pops off. What do you think behind that?
Yeah. Well, here's where I have pushback. I mean, I agree with you, but here's the problem. Half of that is not mental illness. It's pandering to this idea that so first of all, by the time someone even recognized what a symptom was, you remember, you heard in Africa they had the one disease, and we wish we were in America to have the one thing. But now social media, everything can go by fast. If I'm pushing this message out, I have anxiety, I'm so stressed, my life is crazy, blah, blah, blah. And then you get that same news flash in 30 seconds to a different part of the world. How come they don't have the same panic? How come they don't deal with how come there's a different type of chaos for them? But now all of a sudden, when you have you've always had teenagers increase every generation their level of disrespect. But now when you have teenagers who have the power to say, if you don't, I will go. That used to be, but now I have the power to say there's a law to back it up. And then if it's not a law issue, it became a mental health issue. How can the doctors be backed for the lifelong payment, or the pharmaceutical companies be a lifelong? So we agree, it must be mental health. Mental health. Anxiety is normal. You put someone in a cage with lions and they poop themselves, that's always going to be the condition. So all of a sudden is that now all of a sudden a mental illness? There is anxiety disorder, but you have to meet a certain level, a certain requirement. I'm depressed. We've always had people who were not in the mood, lower mood, but now instantly, it's like when the ADHD came out. I mean, people were flicking the pen, ADHD and the medicine behind it. ADHD and the medicine behind it. That was the buzzword. Now what's under the buzzword? Trauma. And there's always been PTSD, but trauma. So yes, I think it's increased, especially with the pandemic. But we need to get back to normalizing some of these things. Like, yeah, toughen up. So you add sensitivity, and you add panic, and you add and mental illness. Let's get back to normalizing. That's going to happen in life. Suck it up. Oh, don't say that. And then now I'm shrinking, and I can't even parent my person, my kid, or whatever. So jobs are saying you might snap, you might go off. We've been having postal stuff going on for decades. We didn't hear about it as much, but it's been going on for decades where someone gets mad at work and just goes in and black folks, man, please. First of all, we weren't even wasting our time going up there if we weren't getting the check. Right? I'm not wasting my gas to come over. Am I fired or what? I mean, what's the deal? And then y'all not saying nothing about Jane. All right. So when I snap up in this piece, then all of a sudden now the companies are creating policies that say, even if you say, I'll kill you, that's workplace violence. What? So they're putting in systems, but because people are saying, oh, I'm just so stressed. Now they're adding the mental health piece to it. And I think we can reduce that by getting back to basics of there are things that are going to be tough in life. And then there's mental health.
Doc, let me ask you a question, man. I know you've lived long enough like I live. Back in the 80s, man, we used to have this thing where we made a certain illness a fashion statement. Think about it. Back in the day, we used to have this thing where bulimia and anorexia was the thing. Boy, have we solved that problem now.
Right.
We don't ever hear that no more. You know what I'm saying? Everybody thick now. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nobody skinny no more. Don't nobody want to be skinny. Everybody want to be thick with the BBL and all this other stuff.
Right.
We don't have that no more.
Right. I'll give you an example. I got in trouble yesterday at my job, or I got talked to at my job yesterday. And I reversed it and said, get me in trouble. I don't care. But, I'm talking to 4 idiots right now at the job. I'm talking to 4 professional counselors. You guys sound like idiots. They were so make a long story short, I had these teen clients. 2 of them are transitioning, 2 of them are not. And I said, the whole thing was about distress tolerance. Learn to deal with the feelings. Oh, distress tolerance. There's some things that are just true in life. And so I said, what's the worst thing someone can call you? Because they were talking about, all my life but you panic more now and you react more now from something you've been called all your life. I mean, are the curse words getting better? If you were called a B back 10 years ago and now it seems like you're going to die from it, what the world? What's changed? So we picked 2 worst words were the F word, the N word, and the C word.
Yeah.
And so I said, do you even know what the N word stands for? Well, don't tell me you wouldn't get mad. I said, I don't get mad. I said, I know what it is. I want you to say it. What? I said, in France, it means worker. I want you to call me a worker. Well, yeah, I make it as bad as I want it to be. And then the F word, in another part of the world, that means a box of sticks. So what are you getting worked up for? So if someone gives it meaning and you go with it, same thing with now all these definitions that have changed. If we go with it, no, why should I submit to it? Why should I surrender? Because you want to change the word. I'm not going to get my feelings about it. The C word, I didn't have a definition for it. So I said, well, what do we, as a group of female, identify as females? And one of them said, it's the vagina. And I said, okay, well, what's the intention for the vagina? To give birth, to give life. So how's that a bad thing if we go by the original thing? Then someone said, oh, I don't want to talk about it. And then They snapped at each other. I said, let them work through it. No, no, no. Separate, calm down. And then I watched the one who was crying. And when it seemed like the more attention that person got, the more they were, oh! And then I could see them checking. Oh! I'm like, would you please stop pandering? Please stop the overcare. Please stop the overextension. What is that for? We want to make sure that, and then now they just missed 2 hours of lessons because this is a one-stop shop. It's like a residential home with a school program in it. They just missed 2 hours of classes. So that acting out serves so many purposes. I got to miss out on the class. I got to do this and that, and I got to get the care. How is it that you were in the room, and I'll land with this, you were in the room with the therapist and with the people who caused the problem. You ran away from the problem, and then later on and looked for, oh, hello, oh, hello. And some people came in. If you really want to work it through, you went back into the room and worked it through. So that was a long-winded answer. My apologies, but to answer your question, sir, I challenge people to really think about, do we have mental illness, or do we have just people taking advantage of certain things and changing a bunch of stuff? And once we start adjusting and making those changes, guess what happens? The systems start to change. And now we have this new process.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, guys. It's getting top of the hour. So we're going to finish up one last round with final thoughts. And I want to tell you what's the plans of the next couple weeks. So I'm going to respectfully give it the first one to our chef. Payne, you're first, brother. It rings well. Chef Payne has a good ring to it. I don't care what anybody says. You can fight me for it if you want.
I've been called worse things, I guess. You know, I do like to cook. Anyway, I don't know, man, what the answer is to what we're going through now. All I know is that we need to move differently at all levels. Right. And I'm starting to say that I don't think, when I talk to my daughters, I don't think none of us are really unicorns. Right. Because they have a circle of friends in their age group, and they think like them, and that kind of stuff. So I'm thinking that it's not all is not lost, but the way our future is going to look, it can't be corrected to look like it did in the past. It has to be something new. There has to be something new. So now I'm thinking that if we give them like guidance, our guidance can't be like, this is how it used to be, so let's get it back to that. No. This is, there's a way to do things that you might have to come up with as a Gen Zer, but it's still a right way and a wrong way to do things, and you need to know the difference, right? So one thing I can say that as a man and as women, if we have young kids or younger people, young adults, stop telling them that it's too early for them to get married in their 20s. We got to stop telling them that bullshit. It's not. We need to stop, and we need to tell them that if you do that, here's some of the things you need to look for. You got to be prepared to grow together. And that's how you have those long relationships, right? Because you're both, malleable. So right. You'll blend together a whole lot easier. You'll go through some trials, some tribulations, but if y'all both have a plan that you're working on, it don't matter. You don't talk 50-50. It's 100-100. And it don't make it complicated. Keep people out of your business. Those kind of things are timeless. So, and I think we've been given some wrong messages because and sometimes we think it's benign, but when a woman hears another woman says, listen, don't get married. Well, what's my alternative? Well, ride the carousel. And then a man will tell her that, they don't say ride the carousel. They'll say, enjoy your life. Which is just a euphemism for getting a lot of dicks, right? And for the men who are just wired to have sex, we can't just say you have to have dick discipline. We got to tell them the consequences of not having dick discipline. Because if you're 20 years old and you make a mistake with a woman, you're going to be almost 40 years old or older before you get out from under that. That's a lot of life to give up. That's not yours. I don't think I could, we should be able to paint a horror story of what that looks like. I know I could. But the one thing we need to do is we need to be truthful with them. Well, did you do that? Did you not have unprotected sex? Yeah, I did. And I had a whole bunch of sleepless nights waiting for the girl to call me for her that her period came too. You don't want to go through that. You don't want to go through that. So we got to tell them the truth. And just because I was an idiot doesn't mean you need to be one. And then let them make decisions on their own life. So we need to tell men something, and women need to stop telling women not to get married when they're younger. That shit's crazy. And that's why we got so much damage, because after they get so much sex, that's where the trauma comes from when they're 30, 31. They're looking at every other guy as some kind of savior or something like that. So both on both men's side and the woman's side, we need to give them a better and different story. I'll just land it there.
Thank you. Boss, you want to go next?
Yeah, man, I'll go next. As far as education is concerned, man, we need to learn how to be more empathetic and give people the power to help them to solve their own problems. You know what I mean? I'll give you an example. Say, for instance, if your kid came to you and said, hey, look, Dad, I got this problem. Mom, I got this problem. I'm going through this. What should I do? And you tell your kid, hey, look, I came up in a different time. You know what I mean? And one day you're going to have kids and it's going to be a different situation. What advice would you give to your kid if they were in that particular situation? So what it does, it forces them to look at their problem, not only from their standpoint, but also forcing them to look at the problem from a different angle, as if they're looking at it as if they're a responsible adult. And how would you handle that with your child? So that way they, in essence, will start to learn how to solve their own problems, because in essence, we're not always going to be here to help them solve their problems. So what it does, it forces them to get into the habit of solving their own problems. We shouldn't give them the answers, but at the same time, we should also be there for them emotionally and have empathy and say, you know what, when I was your age, I went through the same thing. You know what I mean? And I had to figure it out for myself. I went through my particular situation. You know what I mean? And I had to figure it out for my. I got to echo, guys. But my thing is this: you have to explain to them and say, "Hey, look, I went through the same thing, but my generation was a little different, and you may have to tweak it to suit your needs in a generation that you have now, because now in your age, people are extra sensitive about certain things. So you kind of got to be careful with what you say, So that means you're gonna have to think before you act. You're going to have to think before you speak. And that's something that you can use right now and something you can use in the future, Also, we should also speak to everybody's insecurities, men and women. I think a lot of times people love to talk about women's insecurities, but they don't like to talk about men's insecurities because that's something we don't talk about. Men, we don't talk about that. Just start saying, hey, why are you insecure about that? Do you feel like you're not enough? Do you feel like you have to do this right away? I said, look, you got your whole entire lifetime to figure out exactly what problem it is and how to solve it. Just take it day by day and get better at it a little bit at a time. As a matter of fact, write down 2 or 3 goals that you think you can handle by the end of the year. And then from that, show us how you can accomplish that in the next 2 or 3 months. And I'm going to check back with you, put it on the calendar. And we're going to walk you through that. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be teaching them how to walk through their insecurities so they don't have to live through it, so they're not held captive to it, so that they're not held hostage to it. You know what I mean? So that way they don't make mistakes they normally wouldn't make based upon their insecurities. Sometimes people just need to know it's going to be okay. And you don't have to have the answer today. You see what I'm saying? And it's okay to ask for help, But at the end of the day, we still want to empower people to have control over their lives and the directions over their lives and how to think for themselves. Because at the end of the day, you can only control one person, that's yourself. And the best thing you can do is you can free people of themselves by having to be responsible for someone else's emotions, someone else's thought paths, and say, hey, look, you got enough problems with yourself. Start with yourself first. Get good at helping yourself first. And when your cup is full, then you'll be able to pour out into somebody else and help somebody else. But only then that you should help somebody else. And that way you won't deplete yourself and you run yourself down. So that's my final thought. Make sure that we're flexible in our thinking, have empathy, and teach us how to think for ourselves.
Lost. Thank you again.
Thank you, sir.
Wife, you're up.
All right.
You're on mute, hon.
Good show tonight.
You're on mute.
Oh my
Still on
God,
mute.
how?
I can hear you.
I cannot hear her. Hang on a second.
I'm not on mute.
Doc said we can hear you.
I can hear you. It's funny. I do see the mute button, but I hear you though.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sing it, sing it.
Sorry.
Weird. I cannot hear her on my end.
I can't hear either, but that's okay.
Oh, you can't? Okay, well, hopefully.
I don't know what the deal is. How
I
can
hear
these
music in
guys
the
hear?
background now. Of course, OBS is going to act up towards the end of the damn stream.
Do you want me to keep talking?
I see this little red dot. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I see the red dot. But is that just in the stream or in the behind the chat, or can the stream? Anyone have the stream up to see if they hear the actual
Yeah,
show?
have a stream.
I have it up, but I don't know if it's going to double or not.
Wife.
So what do I do? Keep talking?
Okay, I just got a text from Hashim because he's on a personal call. He can hear you, so you can go ahead.
Okay. So I think education is good. I think sometimes staying in your own box, not willing to learn about anything else or educate yourself about all the, what's going on around us does you a disservice. The young people, they don't want to learn anything about the boomers. The boomers may not want to learn anything about Gen Z. But I think if we, do educate ourselves about what each generation is going through, I think when we do talk and have these conversations, being able to have an understanding will be able to make you more relatable to them, in a sense. So like you may be able to, maybe you're not, compromising on everything, but you do pick up a few term slang, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, that Riz. They'd be like, oh, what you know about Riz? So now that's a doorway. That's a gateway to now I can implant some traditional thought into you. And by that person listening, well, let me show you something old school. Like, okay, I learned something new today, even though I may not practice it. I may not wear my hat backwards or sag my pants, but the fact that you listen to me makes a world of difference, because that's just from my experience. And I think if we start to do a little bit more of that and plant those seeds, and I think that we would have a better understanding on what direction we need to go. And I think people can start negotiating and compromising and in those ways. So I just think education is a big part. I like to read. I like to learn. I just listen to so many things and really try to fight for the truth. I know that it's very costly. But hey, it's worth it to try, try to get the truth out there. Even though, there's a lot of what I've read about social constructs. It's not so much like one specific idea thought anymore. There's a whole bunch of social constructs that have been just thrown at us and that we have to get used to. So if these people talk about we're the zebras, so like that's a new social construct. So now we have to learn about the zebra life. And so so it's a lot going on, but just educating yourself and really trying to always push the truth and stand on truth and not apologize for that. No matter the cost, I think it's worth it. I don't think a lot of people want to stand behind and take the cost of that, that's just me. Yeah, so educate yourself, stand on the truth, fight for it, be relatable, learn about other people so that you can, get through them, and that's it. That's all I can think about. Sorry, I learned this about the truth, right? It's a German philosopher. He said first the truth is ridiculed. There's three stages of the truth. First is ridiculed, then it's violence. There behind it, people fight, like there's a fight, and then the third stage is accepted as self-evident. So people start accepting the truth because it went. I didn't want to hear all that, whatever. But now, when I get into that situation, oh, you know what? Our pain was right. Dr. Kume was right. Lost in Translation was right. Peter was right. So I just think that is worth planting and fighting for. So that's just me. That's what I'm coming to learn and research about. So yeah, I'm always a student. I love to learn. I love to listen. To have better conversations. So that's what I do. Sorry.
Doc, it's on you.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you. Um, so, of course, again, I thank everyone for allowing me to share in this space. And I love sometimes when I get the praise of, hey, we have the doctor or the real doctor, stuff like that. In a way, we're all the type of doctor that I am. I get in debates, not me. The industry gets in debates amongst each other. MD versus PhD, PSYD versus a DO. It's like, is a dentist a real doctor? Blah blah blah. But a philosopher is actually the first MD that the first one that PhD that teaches. So who teaches the doctors? So you could be a medical doctor, which is the highest level of whatever kind of doctor in, but who teaches? So they would say the teacher, the philosopher, the educator is actually the doctor, the educator. So it's always like an ongoing debate, right? A fun debate. But in that sense, we are all doctorates in our own way because we're teaching, we're giving back, we're offering. So I might have education or training in a specific area, but just like each one of us, we have either training, life experience, knowledge in our own way. So I just wanted to invite us to say, hey, in our own way, we're all doctors or doctoring or offering this doctrine and giving back. So as far as the education topic, I think we need more of this to where people are offering those doctrines and saying, hey, let's look at this. I love what the wife podcast just the wife. I heard you say the wife. At first, I thought he was like, "Oh, your wife is on the show."
I'm all waiting up here.
Yeah,
Speaking into existence.
yeah. I love how you talked about that ridiculed, mocked. I mean, if you think about it, if we go through our time, isn't that how it works? We get ridiculed and mocked. And we talk about way back in time, someone that we knew walked with a cross on his back was ridiculed and mocked and crucified. And then after the fact, we believe. After the fact, we start to accept. And after the fact, we want to advocate for it. And so even though we get into these generational things, it's almost we're going through that same process. We're ridiculing, we're mocking, we're going through the stage of, is it about our fear? Is it about because now we have the wisdom, we want to make sure? How much of this is really about us controlling things? And then using the educational system, knowledge is power. So one of the ways of controlling things is to control the educational system. Many parents have to question, what's that about? Because when is it their time? When is it the next generation's time? At what point do we kind of hand it off and say, well, we did it this way. I just don't want you fucking up my future, or excuse me, I don't want you messing up my future. So just want to make sure we don't have no knuckleheads next go around. So at what point do we say, if you're a knucklehead or not, it's yours? If you're a knucklehead or not, we had fat shoelaces. You had drop your pants to your drawers. They had the cow pants with them big parachute pants and look like a cow out there.
You went old school on us tonight.
Yeah, I'm saying everyone had something. Right. So now, if this is your something, be proud of it because you're gonna get it's yours. And so, in closing, I was taking some notes when everyone was going. See what we can do for collaboration, either in the school system, but K through 12, they're gonna teach what they teach, and we have certain hand in it, and we don't. But at home, There's no excuse. There's no excuse. And teaching doesn't mean forcing. Teaching means here you go, here's the knowledge, and then allowing the space for them to do what they can do with the knowledge. But if I don't allow that space, I can teach them to death, but then what? And then learning a person's comprehension style. Not everyone can handle, even me. I can give these haymaker lectures, and people are just like, huh? I can be spot on, I can be surgical. And people are like, ooh, all that shit you said, man. Thank you. And so knowing how to teach, how much to give, how much to listen, how much to invite, how much to welcome so we can collaborate better. Truth. One of you were talking about truth. Own your truth first. Because we're teaching all these people about make sure you live in the truth and live in the truth and who are you and who are you. Have we looked in the mirror? Do we even realize that sometimes when we're talking about that, and I don't mean like on YouTube, but I'm talking about in our families, do we even recognize how we look about right?
Sorry.
and
That's
so
true.
recognizing our truth so the person feels safe enough to collaborate with us. And that way we keep them connected too. If I feel like I'm not safe, but this agency over here will allow me to get this agency over here will take these books out of the program, this company over here, this government will allow, because I don't even feel safe enough to talk to my own. So think about that. And I thank you for the opportunity and space. I'll land it there. Thank you.
So before I go into my thoughts, it's funny you said that. If we recognize ourselves getting angry, because I have cameras all over this house, every corner, crank. I keep an eye on my mom through here. So one time I lost my temper, and I went back and saw it. I did not recognize myself, and I'm usually pretty checked in my temper. So I challenge anybody who has anger issues or have a short temper, put cameras around, lose your temper, go back and watch it. Tell me if you recognize yourself then. Then we can have that discussion. But about education. Education is a key to future. It's the past, present. We might give crap to the new generation coming up, but they are the future. Let's bring them up. Let's get better with them. Let's help them. Except giving shit to them, how about we embrace them? Like they're having a hard time. How about you get on your 2 knees, help them change a tire? Or you got a flat tire? Make them do it. You might learn something in the process. Learning is the person you want to be. If you're not learning one thing a day, you're not doing your job right as a human being. That's what I'm going to leave it at. So, for this coming up week, we have an episode on the Operation Hangout. I'm excited for this one. I'm very excited. Bodybuilding versus CrossFit. I'm curious who is going to win that one. That's a good argument. I got some juicy guests coming on that one. Sunday on the Gray Line, I do have my brother Paul co-hosting with my priest, my father. Father Cosadino is coming on. I'm excited for that one too. I wonder what he's going to say. Hopefully I don't embarrass myself like usually. So, and next week, we are talking about, let me get the schedule up here 1 second, guys, is empire, people, and evolution. Why is the government controlling us and we're not controlling the government? That is the biggest question I have for everybody for next week. So, except that is the schedule for the next 2 weeks. So, like as always, stay fresh, stay safe, and I'll see you guys next week.
Right.